foundation of Canadian government, a massive change in how this country is governed, and Canada's first constitution. This is the Constitution Act of 1791. The Constitution Act of 1791 was the act that created Upper Canada and Lower Canada, not to be confused with the Confederation of 1867 that created Canada as a complete country. The meaning of the word constitution is, in this context, a body of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. According to the Canadian Encyclopedia, the Constitution Act was fairly inclusive for the 18th to 19th century. Voters were simply considered any person who is 21 years or older, and natural citizens of the British Crown. These people must not have committed a serious criminal offense, and must also own land or property of a certain value, or pay a certain amount of rent, normally a high amount. TLDR, if you aren't a British dude, then you have a minor chance of voting.
Hello and welcome to the Democracy Game Show, circa 1791, where certain people win the lottery and everyone else pays for it. I'm Mad Mary Day, the host of the world's most populous game show. Let's meet today's contestants. This person is a settler from Lower Canada, known today as Quebec. Their family raises crops on their farm this year and hunted for meat to survive the winter. Maple syrup makes their life bearable, and few of them speak any English, though they're ruled by the British Crown. So, Jean-Guy Dupuis, welcome to the Democracy Game.
What?
This woman is one of Canada's first people, but we don't call them that in 1791. We settlers call them savages. Her people helped us win this land against the French, but now pretty much ignore them. She's a member of the Mohawk tribe, and she hunted all year to bring in beaver and wolf pelts, as well as deer and moose meat to survive winter. She's related to Tyendinaga, also known as Joseph Brant. In 1791, her name doesn't really matter much because she is a woman and a savage.
Although you have conquered the French, you cannot conquer us. We are not your slaves. These lakes, these woods and mountains were left to us by our ancestors. They are our inheritance, and we will part with them to none.
This couple is from Britain. Their family brought in thousands of dollars from their investments in India, some of them illegal and fraudulent. They have many friends who are friends of the King of England. Welcome to Upper Canada, Mr. and Mrs. William Osgood.
Well, at least we're not in Lower Canada. Those Frenchies are intolerable. But hey, you Canadians need my money to build canals and Anglican churches, and you can all speak English here. You wouldn't want the unlettered and unfit like these people to occupy positions which require judgment and discrimination, would you? So here I am to ensure that British tradition is well established in North America, no matter what those uppity Americans, the French, or the savages do.
And now we're ready to play the democracy game. Our first question, contestants, is, what is democracy? Hey, you, start us off.
Democracy is an ancient practice of many different indigenous peoples that allow each person to have a say in their own governance. It provides organization and structure to designate roles and responsibilities for leaders. All elected chiefs and leaders are accountable to the people who elected them and provide leadership to ensure the survival of their community. In the Mohawk tribe, we women select our chiefs.
Oh well, we wouldn't want to accept those leveling tendencies that have produced such rowdy democracy like in the United States, which is the very hotbed of turbulence and disaffection. No! Democracy is about gentlemanly capitalism where the aristocracy, families like ours, make lots of money with our friends, and we rule everything, with the monarch's blessing of course, and we let the regular common folk pretend to have power in a legislative assembly of some kind. All I know for sure is that democracy should only be available to those who own land, preferably those who own a lot of it.
Ah, le calice du château clic.
And 10 points to William Osgood in the first round for answering correctly for the time period. And now for the next question. Section 38 of the Constitution Act of 1791 says that the Legislative Assembly, the Legislative Council, and the Executive Council are all intended to be separate groups of parliamentary government, modeled after the system in Britain. This means that aristocrats like the Osgood family can serve on all three levels of government if they want to. Is this true or false, contestants? Jean-Guy Dupuis?
Quoi?
Well, yes, that is true. I serve on both the Executive Council as well as the Legislative Council. I don't bother with the rabble in the Legislative Assembly, who has no power anyway. They're the common folk, who aren't as accomplished as I am and simply can't understand the hardships of the wealthy.
You!
That is not democratic. You can't serve in all places of government. That's not fair. Plus, it's a total conflict of interest. You will corrupt all workings of government in your own financial favor.
And William Osgood wins 10 points in round 2 for answering correctly for the time period. And now the final round question. John Graves Simcoe has been appointed to Upper Canada as the Lieutenant Governor, reporting to the Governor-in-Chief, Lord Dorchester, Sir Guy Carleton, who resides in Lower Canada. Simcoe wants to rule on his own, so to garner support, he has granted huge tracts of land to Americans fleeing the Revolutionary War, and has given over 500 acres to each of his friends and associates. Contestants, is this true or false?
Well, yes, I'm a good friend of Simcoe, and he is only trying to ensure the future economy of this colony. Our land is quite nice, really. But the best tracts of land really should go to those of us who are capable of administering this new country of the Canadas in the traditional British way. It only seems right that we dominate in each town and village across Ontario. We're all family, really, all connected, as it should be to keep our wealth for generations.
Jean-Guy Dupuis, do you have an answer?
Je retourne à ma ferme.
You!
You cannot give away land that does not belong to you.
And another 10 points to William Osgood just for answering, because nobility has its privileges. And that's it for the Democracy Game Show. William Osgood, you are the winner of the grand prize, which is a membership in an exclusive club that guarantees you British titles, a large pension, a secure post that pays well, almost $1,000 a year, and political influence on all levels of government in Upper Canada. Your good friend Simcoe has also appointed you to the highest paid position in the land, Chief Justice of Upper Canada. Congratulations! Thank you everyone for playing the democracy game, where certain people win the lottery and everybody else pays for it. Tune in next week when the Democracy Gone Show will host William Lyon Mackenzie King, who fights the family compact by starting the Upper Canada Rebellion, demanding responsible government in the Canadas. Until next time, I'm Mad Mary Day, urging you to have your head checked if you think you live in a democracy. Good night!
Some historians say that this act was the first step to Confederation, or potentially led to Confederation in the end. After all, the Constitution is what created this primitive version of Canada. Here's a quote from the Canadian Encyclopedia. By giving Upper Canada a provincial constitution and a separate existence, and by favoring the British colonization there, Britain took the first steps on the path that led, ultimately, to the creation of the Canadian Confederation. Towns and cities like York, Sandwich, and Quebec City are now Toronto, Windsor, and Quebec City. It also provided a place for loyalists, post-American Revolution, a place to stay. Do you want to live in a village like this, where there's trees, snow, and wildlife galore? Escape starvation and come to Upper Canada, where the British rule. Just a 3 to 6 month boat ride and you and your children can be off to a cold new start. All this could be yours for 2 nearly impossible payments of £50 sterling. Don't delay, send your letter today. Survival of the voyage is not guaranteed. You and your loved ones may perish from cholera, smallpox, typhus, or the flu. Upon arrival, you and your family may be quarantined for 3 to 6 months. Travel from the harbor to your homestead could take months on foot. You may encounter hostile indigenous peoples, whose villages were destroyed by previous settlers. Your new home may burn down due to the following: lightning strikes, hay chimneys, or angry people with torches. Bear spray will not be invented for another 100 years. True Englishmen don't go to Lower Canada if they know what's good for them. The way that government worked in Upper Canada is a bit different than how it worked today. It's similar in some ways, like how a lot of it is a lot of rich people getting elected for the economy, but it's different in a lot of other ways. First, the British government elected a lieutenant governor, who, as shown in Let's Play Democracy, is normally hesitant to move here. The governor appoints the Legislative Council and the Executive Council. I will explain the rules soon enough. Finally, the settlements got to choose a legislative assembly that had very little power. The Legislative Council made laws for Canada, not without being approved by the Crown, of course. The Executive Council told the Lieutenant Governor what his next move should be. And finally, the Legislative Assembly mostly ignored by those higher on the chain. It was quite an unbalanced system, tilting in favor of the British. The Canadians had little say in the matter, which led to a revolt against the system. But that's a story for another day. Both Lower Canada and the French were fairly disadvantaged in this deal. Not only did Upper Canada control both sections of Canada, Upper and Lower Canada, but to my knowledge, the British also chose who the Lieutenant Governor is in Lower Canada. There were also the indigenous peoples, who were imagined by foreigners, the Europeans of course, to be a savage and primitive kind. The prejudice was more the British than the French. Not only did the indigenous peoples introduce the Americans and the British to democracy, but the British were actually raiding the indigenous villages and burning them down or taking all their supplies. It wasn't a very nice time for indigenous peoples. I wondered what people's opinions were on this government system, and so when I was in Upper Canada Village last weekend, I decided to do a survey. I asked 10 people 4 questions relating to government and democracy, and here are the results of that survey. Here's our first question. Would you rather be ruled by the British Crown or elect Canadian representatives? Of the 10 people that we asked that question, every single one of them said that they would elect Canadian representatives. When asked why, 9 out of the 10 answered with,
I think they would have a better knowledge of what was needed in this country.
Pretty telling of what the opinions of the 18th century Canadians would have thought of this government system. Our second question is, do you think that first past the post or proportional representation is a better voting system?
Proportional representation.
Proportional. I don't understand the system myself.
60% of the people we interviewed, or 6 out of the 10 people, chose proportional representation. 10%, or 1 person, chose first past the post, and 3 out of the 10 people didn't know the system. The third and last question is, do you think that our current system of government is democratic?
I think it's very democratic, yes. Yes.
Better? Yes.
Half of the people we interviewed said that yes, our current system of government is democratic. 20% said that it's sort of democratic and that we can do better, and 30% said no, our current system of government is not democratic. To clarify, the question isn't, is the current party in power democratic? The question is our voting system democratic? Is our current system of government as a whole democratic? And that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little video on the Constitution Act of 1791. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it was entertaining, especially the skits. See you next time! I wondered what